Your body has a night shift, and what you do in the final hours before sleep decides what that shift actually does all night long. It either spends the whole night quietly burning through your stored fat, or it spends it doing the exact opposite, packing fuel away instead. Same person, same calories, same amount of sleep, and yet, somehow, a wildly different outcome by morning. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? That sounds like something invented to sell you a bedtime tea. So let me be clear right now, before we go any further together. I'm not going to promise a magic window where fat simply vanishes overnight. What I'll tell you is stranger, and honestly far more useful than that. Your body runs on a clock. Not a metaphor, an actual molecular timekeeping system that exists inside almost every single cell you have. That clock decides, hour by hour, how your body handles the fuel you give it. Give food at the wrong point, and the same meal behaves differently. Once you understand why that happens, everything about your evenings changes completely. You stop thinking about willpower, and you start thinking about timing instead. So stay with me here, because there's a study coming in a minute that quietly settled an argument researchers had been having for years. Let's start with the puzzle itself. For a long time, the old don't eat after 8 advice was treated as pure folk nonsense. And on paper, it really should be nonsense. A calorie is just a unit of energy. Energy doesn't wear a wristwatch, does it? 200 calories of rice at noon holds the exact same energy as 200 calories of rice at midnight. Physics doesn't check the clock. So why did study after study keep finding that late eaters tended to carry more body fat, even when the total food matched? For years, the explanation was simply behavioral. Late eaters snack more. Late eaters choose worse food. Late eaters are stressed, or tired, or working odd shifts. All of that is true, and all of it muddies the water badly. To answer this properly, you'd need to strip every one of those factors away. You take the same people, feed them identical meals, control every single calorie, and change only one thing: the clock on the wall. That's exactly what a team at Brigham and Women's Hospital did, publishing the results in Cell Metabolism back in 2022. And it was clever work. They took overweight and obese volunteers, then ran them through 2 different conditions. In the first, they ate on an early schedule. In the second, they ate the same meals, same composition, same amount, just shifted about 4 hours later. Everything else was completely locked down. Sleep timing, activity, light exposure, even nap schedules were controlled. Only the meal clock moved. So here's what happened, and I want you to sit with each piece. First, hunger. On the late schedule, people were noticeably hungrier. Not slightly hungrier. Meaningfully, uncomfortably hungrier. And their hormones told the story clearly. Their leptin dropped. That's the hormone your fat tissue releases to tell your brain, we've got plenty stored, you can relax now. Meanwhile, ghrelin, the hormone that whispers go find some food, climbed up. Their bodies were being told they were running low while eating exactly the same. Second, their burn rate. Their energy expenditure went down on the late schedule. Their bodies simply spent less energy over 24 hours. Same input, smaller output. And third, the part that genuinely stopped me. Researchers took biopsies of the fat tissue itself and looked at which genes were switched on. On the late eating schedule, the machinery for building and storing fat was more active, and the machinery for breaking fat down had gone quieter. So the fat cells themselves had changed their behavior. Not the person's choices, not their discipline. The actual tissue was behaving differently. Sit with that. Hungrier, burning less, and storing more. 3 separate systems, all pushed the same direction, by nothing more than the position of the sun outside. Now, why? What does your body actually know about time, and how on earth does it know it? This is where it gets good. Deep in your brain, just above where your optic nerves cross, sits a cluster of about 20,000 neurons. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Think of it as the conductor of an orchestra. It doesn't play any instrument itself, it just keeps everyone else in perfect time together. And it sets its own watch primarily by one single thing: light hitting your eyes. That's the master signal it listens for above all else. But here's what most people never realize. That conductor isn't the only one keeping time inside you. Your liver has its own clock too. Your pancreas has a clock. Your fat tissue, your muscle, your gut lining, they all run their own local timekeeping. Thousands of genes rising and falling daily. And those clocks change what your organs are actually capable of at different hours. This is the piece that reframes everything about how you eat. Your body in the morning is a genuinely different metabolic machine than your body at 11 o'clock at night. Same you. Two different engines entirely. Which brings us to the molecule sitting at the center of this whole story. And it's honestly not the one you would ever guess. It's melatonin. Now, most people think of melatonin as the sleep hormone, but it's far more accurate to call it the darkness hormone instead. Your pineal gland starts releasing it a couple of hours before your usual bedtime as the light fades around you. And it carries one message. It broadcasts to every tissue in your body, night has now begun, so act accordingly. Every organ hears it. Now here's the strange part. Sitting on the surface of the beta cells in your pancreas, the cells whose whole job is releasing insulin to handle sugar, are melatonin receptors. Little docking ports. Melatonin arrives, plugs itself in, and quietly tells those cells to slow right down for the night. And that makes perfect sense. From an evolutionary standpoint, for nearly all of human history, darkness meant no food was coming. So why keep the sugar-handling crew fully alert? Send them home. Switch the body over to burning stored fuel until the sun comes back up. So melatonin turns down insulin release, a feature, not a bug. Unless you eat, because now you've got a plate of food arriving at a body that has already dimmed its lights and locked its doors. Sugar floods into your bloodstream. Your pancreas tries to respond, but the response is blunted. Melatonin is standing in the doorway saying, "Sorry, we're closed." So your blood sugar climbs higher, and it stays elevated longer than the exact same meal would have caused for you at lunchtime instead. The studies on this are remarkably consistent. Give people an identical meal in the evening versus the morning, and the evening glucose response is substantially larger. In some experiments, dramatically so. And there's a fascinating wrinkle here that I love. People carry different versions of the gene for that melatonin receptor. Those with one particular common variant show an even bigger blood sugar spike when they eat during high melatonin hours. Same meal, different genetics, different result. That is wild to me. Honestly, the instructions for how badly late eating affects you are partly written right there into your own DNA. Okay, so we've established that eating close to bedtime is metabolically awkward. But I promised you a full routine, and I intend to deliver it. So far, all I've really said is eat earlier. That's not a routine, is it? That's a fortune cookie. Because here's the catch, and it's big. Meal timing is only half of what's happening at night. The other half is sleep itself, and sleep is absolutely not the passive part here. Sleep is where a shocking amount of the actual work gets done. Let me show you exactly what I mean with an experiment worth knowing. Researchers at the University of Chicago put volunteers on a calorie-restricted diet, a genuine, controlled, food-limited weight loss protocol. Then, they split the sleep. One group got a full night, around 8.5 hours in bed. The other got only about 5.5 hours nightly. Everything else, including the diet itself, was completely identical between them. Both groups lost roughly the same total weight. Sounds like a wash, right? It absolutely wasn't. Because when they looked closely at what that lost weight was actually made of, the difference between the two groups was stark. The short sleep group lost significantly less fat and significantly more lean tissue. Muscle, essentially the well-rested group, meanwhile, lost mostly fat. That's the whole story. The tired group had cannibalized themselves. Read that again slowly. Same diet, same number on the scale, a completely different body underneath the surface. And the tired group reported being hungrier throughout the whole thing, which is honestly the cruelest part. Working harder, feeling worse, and getting far less. So what is sleep actually doing that makes such an enormous difference here? A few things, and I promise you, they're genuinely beautiful mechanisms. In the first half of the night, you sink into deep, slow-wave sleep. That's the heavy, hard-to-wake-from stage. And something important happens down there. During those deep stages, your pituitary gland releases the largest pulses of growth hormone you'll get in an entire 24-hour period. And that matters hugely. Growth hormone does many things, but two matter most here. It nudges your fat cells to release stored fat into circulation to be burned off, and it helps protect your lean tissue from being broken down for fuel. That's the whole mechanism of that Chicago study, sitting right there plainly. Cut your deep sleep, and you cut your growth hormone pulses. So your body loses its main signal to spare the muscle and spend the fat. Then there's insulin sensitivity. In another study, healthy young adults were restricted to about 4.5 hours of sleep for 4 nights straight. Just 4 nights. Researchers then measured how well their fat cells responded to insulin, and the responsiveness had dropped by around 30%. In fat tissue specifically. 4 nights of short sleep aged their fat cells, metabolically speaking, by a genuinely startling amount. 4 nights. That's a single bad week, really, and then the hunger hormones showed up again. The same leptin down, ghrelin up pattern we saw earlier with late eating. So the problems don't just appear separately. Late eating and short sleep cause the same problems, and crucially, they stack right on top of each other. So the picture is finally coming together now. The evening isn't one lever, it's 2 levers, and they pull on each other constantly. What you eat late affects how you sleep that night, and how you sleep affects how you handle your food the very next day. It's a loop. And loops, thankfully, can spin in either direction. So let's build the routine now. And I want to walk through it in the order your evening actually happens, because that's how you'll actually remember it. It starts earlier than you'd ever think. It starts with light. Most people focus entirely on avoiding light at night. And that's only half right. Because the single most powerful thing you can do for your night is get bright light into your eyes early, ideally within an hour of waking. Outdoor light, even on a gray and cloudy day, is vastly brighter than any indoor lighting you have. Orders of magnitude brighter, in fact. That signal matters. That morning light tells your inner conductor exactly what time zone you're living in. And it's what makes your melatonin arrive right on schedule that evening. A well-anchored clock at 7 in the morning becomes a well-timed clock at 10 at night. The morning sets up the night. Then you do the reverse. In the evening, you dim things down over the last couple of hours. And I want to be honest about the nuance, because the internet got weird here. Your phone screen is not the great villain it's been made out to be. A phone at arm's length is a fairly weak light source. Really, the bigger offenders are your overhead lights in a brightly lit room. Turning off the ceiling light and using a couple of low lamps beats orange glasses. And this matters for more than just falling asleep quickly. There's research on sleeping in a moderately lit room. Not blazing, just a normal lit one. It left people with higher heart rates overnight and worse insulin sensitivity the next morning compared to near darkness. One night, a dark room is a metabolic input. Next, the last meal of your day. Here's my honest read of all the evidence. Aim to finish eating roughly 2 to 3 hours before bed, not because a switch flips at some magic hour, but because you want the bulk of digestion and the blood sugar response finished before melatonin shows up. Before you lie down, too, it also dramatically reduces reflux, which fragments sleep far more than most people ever really realize. And there's a bonus here. If you shift some of your calories earlier into the day to make that possible, even better. The research on eating windows keeps pointing the same direction. An earlier window generally beats a later one, even when the number of hours inside the window is identical. Same fasting duration, better results. Just better placement. But here's where I have to add a caveat, because I promised you honesty. Going to bed truly ravenous is its own real problem too. Hunger is arousing to your nervous system. It can fragment your sleep badly, and a fragmented night, as we just established, costs more than a small snack. So this isn't about heroic restraint. If you genuinely need something, keep it small and lean toward protein. That's far kinder to your sleep and blood sugar. There's even reasonably good research showing slow digesting protein before bed supports overnight muscle repair. The nuance is, it's still food. It still counts. It isn't free. Then, alcohol. And honestly, I'm a little sorry about this one. Alcohol is genuinely excellent at making you fall asleep and genuinely terrible at keeping you there. It suppresses your REM sleep early in the night. Then, as your body clears it, you get a rebound in the second half. Lighter sleep, more waking. Often right around 3 or 4 in the morning. You wake up having spent 8 hours in bed and gotten maybe 6 hours of real restoration. And metabolically, something else is happening too. Your body treats alcohol as a priority. It has no way to store it, so it drops everything to clear it. Research has found a couple of drinks can suppress fat burning by roughly a third for hours afterward. Not because alcohol becomes fat, but because everything waits. While your liver is busy handling the alcohol, everything else stands in line. Your fat cells sit there holding their fuel, unable to hand it off. Paused, so a nightcap doesn't just cost you sleep quality. It puts your entire overnight fat burning window on hold while your liver deals with the priority instead. Caffeine is quieter, but sneakier. Its half-life is around 5 to 6 hours. So a coffee at 4 in the afternoon is half still circulating at 10. And in one controlled study, caffeine taken 6 hours before bed measurably reduced total sleep time. And here's the unsettling part. The participants often didn't notice it. They rated their own sleep as perfectly fine, but the objective measurements said otherwise entirely. If you think caffeine doesn't affect you, that's genuinely worth considering carefully. You might be right. Or you might just be a very bad witness to your own sleep. Now, temperature. This one is underrated and completely free. To fall asleep and to reach deep sleep, your core body temperature has to drop by about a degree. That drop is a trigger, not a side effect, so a cool bedroom makes that easier. Most sleep researchers land somewhere around 18 degrees Celsius or the mid-60s Fahrenheit, though individual comfort naturally varies quite a bit. And there's a lovely counterintuitive trick hiding here. A warm bath or shower an hour or two before bed actually helps you cool down faster. Really, warming your skin pulls blood to the surface of your hands and feet. That dumps heat outward, which then accelerates your core temperature drop. You cool harder. You feel warm, then you cool off more than you would have otherwise. Sleep researchers have looked at this repeatedly, and it genuinely holds up well. There's a bonus. Mild, cool exposure nudges brown adipose tissue. That's a type of fat that instead of storing energy, actually burns it to produce heat. We adults have some. Less than infants have. But we're not without it. Now, I want to be careful not to oversell this. The effect of a cool bedroom is modest, not transformative. But it's real. and it's pointing in the right direction, and it costs you nothing more than a small adjustment to your thermostat tonight. Then, the last piece. This might be the most important one of all, and it's the one absolutely nobody wants to hear from me. Consistency. Go to bed and wake up around the same times, including weekends. I know. I really do know. But here's why it matters more than you would ever expect it to. It comes down to a large study. Following tens of thousands of people, researchers found that how regular someone's sleep timing was predicted mortality risk more strongly than how long they actually slept. Regularity beat duration. Because every time you shift your schedule by a few hours, you're essentially flying your body across time zones and straight back again. Your central clock adjusts at one speed, your liver adjusts at another, your fat tissue at yet another. For a day or two, your organs disagree entirely. They're in different time zones from each other, and none of them can coordinate properly. That internal disagreement is where a lot of metabolic dysfunction actually comes from. It's the reason night shift work is so consistently linked to weight gain and diabetes risk. The food, the light, and the sleep all send contradicting messages. So let me pull this together into something you can actually do tonight, starting right now. Bright light into your eyes early in the morning, first thing. Last real meal 2 to 3 hours before bed, with more of your day's food shifted earlier if you can possibly manage it. Overhead lights off later. Lamps low in the final hour or two. Alcohol pushed away from bedtime and honestly kept modest overall. Caffeine cut off by early afternoon, no later than that. A warm shower, then a cool, dark, quiet room to sleep in. And the same bedtime, most nights, boring as that genuinely sounds. That's it. Truly, no supplements, nothing to buy. Now the honest caveats, because you truly do deserve them from me. None of this overrides basic energy balance, not even slightly. If you're eating substantially more than you're using, a perfect bedtime won't rescue you from that. What this routine does is stop you fighting your own biology. It removes the headwind, so the work you're already doing actually counts for something. It makes hunger easier to manage, it protects your muscle while you lose fat, and it keeps your blood sugar handling intact. And please, if you snore heavily, wake up gasping, or feel exhausted after a genuinely full night, see a doctor. Undiagnosed sleep apnea will wreck all of this, and no routine will ever fix it alone. Same goes if you're managing diabetes or taking medication with meals. The timing advice needs to fit your prescription, not the other way around. Always. But here's what I keep coming back to, again and again, every single time. We tend to think of the day as the productive part and the night as the empty part. The pause between efforts. The stretch where nothing happens. It's the opposite, really. The night is when your body actually does the work you set up carefully during the whole day. It's when the repairs finally happen. It's when the fat gets mobilized, when the hormones rebalance themselves, when your brain quietly files away everything it learned. You're not switched off at all. Not remotely. You're running a maintenance crew that only clocks in the moment you finally stop interrupting them. So the routine isn't about restriction. It's not about giving anything up. It's about getting out of the way, dimming the lights, closing the kitchen, cooling the room, and letting a system refined over millions of years do its work. It's extraordinarily good at that work. Better than you could ever consciously be. You don't have to burn the fat yourself. You just have to stop blocking the crew. The crew that does it for you. Every single night, for free, while you rest. So tonight, get out of their way and let them work. Sleep well.